Have you ever looked at your own reflection and felt like you were looking at a mistake? Like everyone else was born with a map to success, and you were born with a broken compass? Stop for a second. What if those flaws are not failure, but the blueprint of your strength? Elias lived in a world that demanded perfection, where worth was measured by grades, salary, and a neatly structured life. In his small competitive town, anything less than perfect was treated like a weakness. Elias was born with a slight tremor in his right hand, something doctors called minor, but for him it felt like a life sentence, especially since he dreamed of becoming an architect. While other children drew clean straight lines, Elias's drawings always carried a slight shake. His father would call him a dreamer, but not with pride, more with pity. Maybe you should choose something more practical. That word, practical, felt like a cage closing in. Watching others design the buildings he could only dream of creating. He had applied for junior design roles 3 times, and each time he was rejected for lacking technical precision. But what he really heard was that he was broken. He found himself standing at the chief architect's drafting table. There was a stalled project for a community center on uneven rocky land. The firm wanted symmetry and perfection, but the land refused to cooperate. For the first time, Elias didn't see a problem in the uneven terrain. He saw something that looked like himself, imperfect, but alive. Instead, it shaped flowing organic lines. He designed a structure that followed the natural slope, hugging the rocks instead of fighting them. He stayed until 3 a.m., lost in something that finally felt like truth. The next morning, panic hit him as he realized he had left the sketches behind. At the office, he saw senior architects gathered around his drawings in silence. The chief architect, Mr. Sterling, studied them carefully. Elias tried to apologize, saying his shaky hand ruined everything. He asked. Elias whispered about his tremor, calling himself a failure. This is texture and this is soul. Elias had done something they couldn't. He let it breathe. Elias was given a chance, but not everyone accepted him. In the office, people called him the charity case and waited for him to fail. The old voices in his mind grew louder, telling him he wasn't good enough and that one mistake would end everything. Elias asked how he knew where each stone belonged. That moment changed something inside Elias. He realized flaws weren't weaknesses, they were connections waiting to be used. He stopped trying to hide his tremor and began working with it instead. He began to understand that strength was not perfection, but adaptability. Nature itself proved that beauty comes from variation, not uniformity. Years later, the jagged peak community center was completed, rising naturally from the mountain like it had always belonged there. At the opening, the town gathered in awe, walking through a structure that felt alive with its imperfections. Elias's father stood quietly, touching the textured walls, realizing for the first time that his son's difference was not weakness but brilliance. Mr. Sterling told the crowd that Elias had taught them something vital, that flaws are simply qualities we haven't learned to use yet. Elias stood before everyone, his hands still shaking, but this time he didn't hide it. "I used to think I was broken," he said. "Now I understand my tremor isn't weakness, it's my frequency. My flaws didn't take away my worth. They defined it," he said, looking at the world that once tried to erase him. The building stood behind him like proof that imperfection can become beauty when accepted instead of hidden. Listen closely. A cracked pot still carries water, and sometimes the leaks help life grow along the way. Your flaws, your past, your struggles, your differences are not failures. It needs more authenticity, more courage to be real. Success is not erasing your edges until you become smooth. It is finding where your edges belong. A diamond shines not because it is perfect, but because it carries light through its inclusions. So stop apologizing for the parts of you that don't fit. And remember, Sometimes the cracks are exactly where the light gets in.